Now that we've gotten all of the basic setup established for having the server set up to serve, obviously, the HTML for our overlay, we have a server set up and we have all that, and then we are serving the page that's at this point just a basic, flat, transparent HTML page. Now that we have that serving onto our overlay, what we're going to do is we are going to use socket.io, which I'm sure you noticed toward the end of the last video that we did not actually use, even though we set it up, we didn't actually use it. We're going to use socket.io to connect the bot, specifically with chat, to the overlay such that it will allow us to have chat commands such that it will cause certain elements of the overlay to appear or disappear or change based on certain chat commands. So, first thing we're going to need to do is we are going to need to establish a socket for us to connect to. And first thing we're going to do is do that within the bot itself. So, above where we set up the server itself, so above where we have right here the app.use command, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new socket listener. And so you'll notice that we have the socket IO package under the IO constant. So what we're going to do is just like how we have up here, we have a listener for the chatbot that whenever we receive a new message, we have a handler that does something with the message event. So we're going to, instead of using a message event, what we're going to do, we are going to create a new listener for whenever someone connects to the bot. In this case, the only thing that's going to connect to the bot as far as sockets goes is the overlay itself. So the way that we're going to do that, we're going to say io.sockets.on. So just like on the chatbot where we said chatbot.on, and then we put up a listener event, just like there, we're going to do the same thing here. And the event that we're looking for is connection. So whenever something connects to the bot, as far as a socket goes, what we're going to do is we are going to create a new function to handle this. And what it's going to return is a function that has a parameter of simply just a socket. So this is what's actually going to be the socket that is created between the bot and the overlay. And once we have a connection, we can then set up specific listeners to then send messages to, in this case, our overlay. So we're just going to create a new test listener that all it's going to do is it's going to put the last chat message on the screen. So the way that we're going to do that was we're going to do socket.on. And we're going to create a listener specifically for the socket. And so the event that we're looking for specifically is message. We can name this anything that we want. You're going to see in the next video that we're going to make a socket listener specifically for the goals system that we made before. So we're going to create a goals event. So, but in this case, we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to create a socket event for message. So whenever just the regular message comes in to the bot, we're going to just put it on the screen. So just like with the connection listener, where we return a function and then something else with it as a parameter, we're going to create a function here. What we're going to do is we're going to return the message. We're going to submit a message as a parameter. So then once we get that message, what we're going to do is we are going to use this to send the message to the overlay. The way that we do that is with the emit command. So once the message event is triggered, the emit command is called, which is what sends something to the clients that are connected to the socket. So in this case, we're only going to have a singular client connected, which is just the overlay. So this requires two parameters. So a event, which we're also going to call it message, and a bit of data. So we're just going to pass in the message itself. If this seems confusing, what we're doing is we're passing in the message from the parameter up here into here. So we're just kind of passing things down a chain, and this will make sense once we get to the overlay and make this connect. And so this is the event that we're looking for on the box. And this is the event that we're going to send to the overlay. So if we wanted to make this a bit clearer, what we could say is the event that we're sending is event message send, and we're sending the message parameter that we picked up here. So we're just passing it down the chain. So if that makes more sense, you can do it that way. But in this case, we're just going to have it as just message. So, and that's it. That's how you set up a listener for the bot to handle something and then send it along to the overlay. Now, whenever we get to the overlay side of things, this is where things are going to get a little trickier. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to import the script for the overlay. Sorry, first we need to import the script for socket IO into the overlay itself. And so the way that we do that is we're going to go into the head tag on the HTML file, and we are going to create a script. So create a script, and we're going to have the source of this script be the client side of the socket IO package that we installed earlier from npm. So the way that you're going to do that is you're going to say slash socket slash or socket.io slash socket.io.js. And this is if you are going for the local version of this. It's already installed on your computer. If you wanted to actually get the online version, the way that you would get that, which actually we should probably do it with the online version, since this is only going to work if we have the internet on anyway and the bot's connected. So let's just do that for simplicity. So the way that you would get the online version of it is you would say https://cdn, the content distribution network .socket.io slash socket.io dash 3.0.0.js. So this is pulling this from an external source, an external content distribution network, specifically from the socket.io website. Then what we're going to do is we are going to create another script. Actually, before we create another script in the HTML file, we are going to create a new folder in our project, and we're going to call it JS. So JS for JavaScript. And then in this JS folder, we are going to create a new JavaScript file, and let's just call it overlay.js. Now, once we have this, what we can do is we can create another script tag here, and we're going to have the source as the JavaScript folder slash overlay.js. Close the tag. Now, something else that we want to do with this script tag is we want to have the defer attribute on this. And what this does for us, the defer thing, is this will ensure that all of our HTML is currently loaded before the script runs, which is typically useful for stuff like this because we want to make sure that we have everything loaded before we try and manipulate it. That's why we're doing something like this. So once we have all of this, what we can do is we can then go into our overlay.js. So you can name this file whatever you want as long as you, when your script tag right here, as long as you name it the correct thing. As long as you name it the same as what you name your JavaScript file. So what we can do is we can then come into our JavaScript file and then we can create a new socket connection. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to create a new variable called socket. The socket is just going to say io.connect. And if you're wondering what the io thing is, this is a command that is a variable that is pulled in from the socket io script from here. So as long as you put this script in first, it will be all of the appropriate variables from that API will be available here in your overlay.js. All right, now that we've connected to our socket, what we can do is we can create a new listener specifically for the overlay. So if you remember, whenever we created a listener in the bot, we have it listening for a specific event and then emitting a new event. This event emission is what's going to get picked up on the overlay here. So we're going to create a new listener here to pick up the event that was emitted from the bot. So this is what's being received from the bot. So just like before, we're going to say socket.on. So on is indicating that we are creating a listener. And so we're going to create a event listener for the event of message. So because as before, we sent an event emission with the event of message. And then we're going to take in the message that we're sending along, specifically from chat. So then we're going to create a function that's going to handle the message that we're being sent as a parameter. And this is where we start doing front-end JavaScript. This is where things get a little more visual, a little more different from the things that you may have seen already from the JavaScript fundamentals tutorial. So the JavaScript fundamentals tutorial playlist is specifically for the fundamentals of just using JavaScript as a language as a whole. It's not dealing with the front end aspect of this. So now we're going to deal with the front end. And by front end, we mean that the things that you actually see. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into our HTML file. We're going to change our div right here that says hello to, we're going to change the ID on it to message test. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this because this is what's going to be filled in dynamically. The internals of this div, the content of this div is going to be filled in dynamically. So let's go in also to the CSS file and change some things around. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to message test. We're going to keep the background as silver. We're going to have the width be, let's just go 50% of the width of the screen. And then we're just going to keep the height. And we're also going to have this appear at the bottom. So we're going to add in a few more attributes to this. So we're going to add in a position of absolute, which is going to allow us to place this HTML element wherever we want on the screen. And then we're going to say the bottom of this is going to be at 0. So now what we're going to do is we are going to just do a simple print out of the message on the screen. So we're just going to say document, and this is how you manipulate things on the front end in JavaScript. We're going to say document, which is calling the entire HTML page. And then we're going to get an element by ID. So get element by ID. And so this is where our IDs come in from earlier as well. So you'll notice that we have the ID on this div of message test. So what we're going to do is we're going to say get element by ID, and we're going to say message test. Then we're going to take the inner HTML, which is what is inside that tag. And then we're just going to create another div that contains our goals. Sorry, our goals, our message, So see if this works the same as React it does. So this is going to take in our message. Sorry, this doesn't work the way that I had intended. Okay, which is going to take in. You can tell that it's been a while since I've worked in regular JavaScript. Most of what I do is actually in React. So the way that you would do this in vanilla JavaScript is you would have all its strings. So then the message and then the div. So you open your div tag and then you put in your content and then you close div tag. You do all of this as strings. And that's all we're doing. That's how this works. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our bot. So we've set all this up, but we've never actually emitted an event from the bot itself. So the way that we are going to do that is we are going to go up to the very top of our chat message handler. What we're going to do is we are going to now emit a new event just for every message that comes in. So the way this works is we are going to call the IO. So we're going to call the socket IO package directly. So then we're going to say for all sockets, so IO.sockets. So for all sockets, we are going to emit an event. And the event that we're emitting this time is message. And the content that we are emitting is just the message itself. Which actually we could make this a little fancier. We could, let's not make our lives hard. Let's just keep it like this. Let's just keep it simple. There's a thing in software that says it's the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. So let's just keep it simple. What we're going to do is we are going to first start the bot. So we're going to cd into the source directory and then node.bot. So if nothing went wrong, this should work. Now, then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the overlay right there. Okay, so that popped up. All right, chat, if you would be so kind as to say pretty much anything, if this works, whenever any of you say something in chat, it will pop up in this gray box. Pretty much anything. Okay, so it did not pop up on our gray box. Why? So something we can do, check this, is we can go into Chrome and we can, so let's turn off the overlay for a second. So we can go into localhost colon 4000. Okay, so this is the same overlay. This is the overlay directly within the browser. So now what we can do is we can actually go into the dev tools within Chrome and check that everything is actually working. So we have a error already. So we cannot read the properties of anger. Thank you for that 27-month sub there. Very much appreciated. That is ridiculous. There, thank you so much. All right, so what it looks like is that the overlay JavaScript file is not connecting. We can see right here that socket.on is not a function at overlay.js. So let's see where we went wrong. Let's go back to our code and let's back up and let me go back. So our overlay.js. That's the problem. So what I had done is I did not have the io.connect as a function. I just had it as a command. So there we go. So this should work. So let me stop the bot. Let's start it again. And then we'll just go over to the Chrome page and we will check again if we get the same error. we did not get the same error. That's good. So let's now go back to this. Let's pull up the overlay itself. All right, chat, if any of you would be so kind as to say basically anything, we should actually get something. All right, there we go. It works. So we have taken a message from chat and then slapped it onto the overlay. So just to make things a little more visible, let me go back to the CSS file. Let's change the font size to, let's say, like 2em. And then I will stop the bot and then start it again. We will close this, turn it back on. All right, chat, if you'd be so kind as to say anything, just anything at all, we will actually hopefully have this thing be mildly visible. And a thing. There we go. So now we can, what we've done is we have taken the bot, we've created a socket here, which waits for a connection. And then once the connection has been established, we create a event listener that will then pass data to the overlay itself. The way that we passed it to the overlay was through this script from the socket.io package, and then through the message listener on the overlay itself that will then handle the event that's being sent and then do something with the overlay itself. So this is just a super basic setup for how to create a socket and then attach it to an overlay that we can then do something with. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to modify this listener here. We're going to change it from a message listener to a goals listener. And what that's going to do is we're going to take any goals that have been created before. So with the add goals, edit goals, remove goals, so on commands. And then whenever anyone does a exclamation point goals command, we are going to emit a new event that will cause the overlay to display the current goals for the current category that we're in on the screen. So stay tuned for that.